Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I appreciate it. The mention of the LinkedIn post about mindset, and I sent an email out to people on my list with that as well. I just dropped a link in the chat to, I think, the LinkedIn post that you're referring to. I've done a few this week, a couple on mindset, a couple on comparison, which relates to mindset. And I'm always just trying to put out great content that I think will be helpful for people in my network. So feel free to check that out at some point and connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks again, Christy and group for having me here. And thanks for everybody for joining. I am going to give you a presentation with some highlights from my book, How to Own Your Career. At the end, I'll give you an offer for some free resources as well as a course for those of you that maybe want to go deeper. But let me make sure I can share this now. So audience, okay. Oh, that's not what I want. Okay, can you see my screen? Own Your Career title screen? Yes, I got thumbs up. All right. Okay, so the book is Own Your Career, Own Your Life. And this presentation is essentially 5 steps to owning your career. I welcome comments and questions. Please have that chat ready to go. I'll ask you some questions. Feel free to drop questions into the chat. And I'll be happy to answer those as we go or at the end. Hopefully we have enough time for all of that. So quick slide on who I am. Christy already introduced me. I do a lot of work in the talent development space. I've got a book. I do speaking with a lot of different companies. I have 2 podcasts. One is on talent development and one is more career focused, the Own Your Career podcast. And I'm also a husband, father of 2 kids, and I live in sunny Orlando, Florida. Previously lived in LA and also San Francisco. So I know some of you are out that way, but I mentioned Orlando, and I run a membership community for corporate talent development professionals. And these are the people who are running training and development in big companies. And I bring in guest speakers and run calls like this, where I'm bringing in the speaker and helping facilitate the topic. And I love doing that and helping people learn and grow in their careers, no matter where they are or what they are doing. So, all right. Does anybody remember, any baseball fans in the group? Anybody remember who this guy is? Could put it in the chat. You can speak up. Okay. So this is Ryan Sandberg. And when I was a kid growing up in the 1980s, he was a second baseman for the Chicago Cubs. And I was a huge baseball fan, sports fan in general, but really loved baseball. I loved the Chicago Cubs. And this guy was my idol. And I wanted to be like him when I grew up. And my dream was to be a professional baseball player. So I'm sure all of you had childhood dreams, right? And some of us maybe have achieved some of those things. Some of you haven't. I'd love for you to throw in the chat, first and foremost, like, what was your childhood dream? Was it to play professional baseball, to be an astronaut, to be a dancer, singer? Did you have one? Love to know. Let's see what you got. Childhood dream. So mine was playing professional baseball. Christy, what was your childhood dream? You're muted, I think, Christy.
You're gonna laugh. I wanted to be a CPA.
Get out of here. That was
no, I'm not kidding. I wanted to be a CPA.
That's amazing. What happened?
No, from the time I was a little kid.
Yeah?
Yeah, huh. But I never made it because I failed my accounting class. C- in my first accounting class.
Oh, what happened in your first accounting class?
C-.
See, so I have a similar story. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I'm glad you mentioned that. So Stephanie said interior decorator. Deborah said scientist. Doug said I wanted to be a mid-level manager. Okay. Claudia said be a famous artist. Misha said archaeologist. Bill said classical pianist. Melanie said author and motivational speaker. Love it. That was not my dream, but it is my dream now. Alan said be a rock star. Literally. Awesome. Benedict said ambassador. Cindy said FBI. Thought I wanted to be a doctor until I realized that I don't like blood. Eden, love it. Awesome. Brent, actor and singer. James said explorer. Maria said vet. Julia said as a teenager, I wanted to be an accountant. Also, so we had 2 people dreaming of accountants. Sierra said a singer or own a boat touring company on an island. Ooh, I like it. Tamara, actress. Herbert, baseball player too. All right, Herbert. Brad wanted to be a hockey player in the NHL. And Maureen wanted to be an astronaut. lately I've heard a lot more kids saying astronaut as my young kids go through school and people talk about what do you want to be when you grow up. So that's cool. That's still a thing. SpaceX bringing it back. All right. So I'm glad we had some great dreams in here. Monica also said an archaeologist. So my dream was to be a professional baseball player when I grew up. But there were two big problems with that, two challenges, if you will. The first challenge was just the odds were against me, as they were for a lot of the dreams that you mentioned. I looked it up, and roughly 0.03% or 1 out of 3,300 Little League baseball players makes it to the major leagues to just get one at bat, let alone become like a regular player or an all-star. So very few players actually make it into the big leagues, 0.03%. So the odds are already kind of stacked against you. Doesn't mean you can't make it, right, in any of these professions, but the odds are stacked against me. The other problem was that I didn't really put in the work. I had this dream that I wanted to be a baseball player, and I was on a team. I was always on a team from probably ages 6 to 15. And I went to practice and I played in the games, but I was really just having fun. I never went to my parents and said, hey, can you get me some extra tutoring or mentoring or practice? Can you put me on a more competitive team? Or went to my coach and said, hey, can we practice more? Because I really have this dream of making it big one day. And I never really shared that with anybody. I just had this dream, and I would play around at home, but I'd go to the practice, go to the games. And guess what happened? I got to high school. I didn't even think I was good enough to make the high school team. And I didn't even try out because I didn't think I was going to make it. And so, of course, I never made it to the big leagues. I didn't even play on my high school team. I'm embarrassed to say that these days, that I didn't even try because I didn't think I was going to make it at that point. And what I learned later in life, among the many, 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 many lessons that I've learned, is that a goal without a plan is really just a wish, right? We can set this goal and say, well, I want to be a baseball player, or I want to be a scientist, or I want to become a vice president or a CPA. But if we don't have a plan to get there, it's just a dream. It's just a wish. And probably it's not ever going to come true. It's most likely not going to happen. Now, Christy, you'd appreciate this next story. So after I gave up the dream of baseball, I finished high school and I did well in academics. And I got into my dream school, which was the University of Florida. My father had gone to school there, and it's the only place I wanted to go. I was a big Gator fan, for those of you who are sports fans. And I really thought I wanted to be an engineer. I had been fascinated with the idea of engineering. I loved to draw roads and bridges in high school. I was really great at math and physics. And so I got to school and I chose my major. I chose civil engineering. This is going to be the major for me. But again, I ran into a couple problems. The first problem was chemistry class, which really has nothing to do with civil engineering, but unfortunately you had to pass one chemistry class to get into that major, to kind of get past the first couple of years. And though I had excelled in calculus and physics, I really struggled with chemistry and I just couldn't get through it. But the other big reason why I couldn't get through it is not just that I wasn't naturally inclined, because there are a lot of things that we're naturally good at and things that we need to struggle to work at to try to improve, right? The other problem was that I joined a fraternity and I was out partying just about every night. So I don't know how many of you can relate to that. Or, you know, sometimes people ask me what I majored in college, which by now has been over 20 years ago. So I usually say drinking because that's pretty much what I spent most of my time doing. I'm a little embarrassed to say that these days, but let's be honest, like that's a lot of what I was doing. And therefore, again, I did not put in the extra effort to go past this class, right? Had I gone to the professor or hired a mentor, a tutor, or even gone to my parents or anybody and said, look, I'm struggling with this class. I really need to get through. Can you help me? Or had I just scheduled a couple extra hours of studying a week, I might have made it through, right? But I didn't ask for help. I gave up and I went back to partying and I changed my major to a business major. And I kind of cruised through the rest of my classes after that point. One of the things I did find, and I realized later on that I excelled at, was networking. I ended up becoming elected president of my fraternity and going on to make a lot more friends. But the friends didn't pay the bills, right? They didn't get me the major that was going to get me the job. So the lesson I want you to take from both of these, because you've probably had your own experiences, and if you have had something that hey, I really wanted to do this, but then I just didn't give it my full effort, feel free to put that in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, and it might be cathartic to just put that out there and be like, you know what? Yeah, I wanted to do this, and I just didn't put in the effort. And that's where I was, right? There were these two big things that I wanted, and I didn't put in enough effort, and I didn't get them. And now I share that because I know many of you are in transition. Many of you are potentially looking for another job. You might be setting a new vision or goal for your career. And if you don't make a plan, and you don't actually put in the effort to get there, and you don't ask for help, you don't hire a coach, you don't work with a team like what Christy has in place, or go through courses and education and do all the things that you can do to get there, then you're not setting yourself up for success, right? You've got to put in the work. So today I want to go through very quickly, and again, feel free to jump in with questions, but 5 steps to owning your career. Number 1, all about setting a vision. We're going to talk about setting specific goals, taking control of your future. We're going to talk a little bit about mindset, and then tie it all together with this idea of being willing to pivot. So number 1 is about setting a vision and connecting to a purpose. Now, I don't know how much is Christy, you and the group already talk about this in the boot camp, but I think it's really important to have a vision for where you want to go with your career. And it doesn't matter whether you're 20 or 50, it's great to have that vision to know where you want to go. And for those of us who have been around for a while, right, we know that things change, right? Stuff comes up, challenges come up. We change what we want to do, right? I wanted to be an engineer. Then I wanted to get into computer programming and business. And now I want to be an author, speaker. And that may change down the line too, right? But the more clear we are on a vision for where we want to go in our career, the easier it is to make decisions, the easier it is to make a plan, the easier it is to set goals, and the easier it is to make decisions when opportunities come our way, right? Because you might be looking for that next role, and your vision is, I want to get a job as a director of finance or a VP of finance. And then someone comes to you and says, hey, I found this opening. I think you could be a fit. It's in marketing. And you're like, well, I used to do marketing. Maybe I could qualify for that, but it doesn't fit into my vision. So I'm going to turn it down. Whereas if I don't have that vision, I'm now open to anything that comes my way, and I'm getting torn in all kinds of different directions, right? So perfect example, last year, an opportunity came my way from a very prominent person in my industry who basically offered me kind of a contract role working for his organization to help grow it. And it was really kind of a dream role because this guy is a huge name in the HR industry. But I checked in with my vision for where I want to go with my career and my business, and decided that it just wasn't a fit. And so I turned him down. I did in a very nice way, thanked him profusely for offering it to me. But it didn't take me very long to think about it because it wasn't the right fit for where I wanted to go with my career. But if I didn't have a vision, I didn't know where I was going, I would have been agonizing about that for days or weeks. What should I do? Did I make the right decision? Did I make a mistake, right? I'm sure all of you have been there. We agonize over these things and then finally make a decision. So when it comes to setting a vision, it's important to know where you want to go. And this requires a lot of reflection too, to think about like who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, what do you enjoy doing? Self-reflection is so important, and most people don't spend much time doing it, but a couple quiet mornings with a cup of coffee and a journal and maybe a conversation with a friend, to talk about, hey, what are the things that I really like doing? What am I good at? What do I excel at? What do I struggle with? What do I want to avoid doing in the future? I love finance. I don't like marketing. So I want to follow that path, right? Or what am I really intrigued by? There's the thing people say, follow your dreams. But there's a pushback on that now. And a lot of people say, follow your curiosity. So what are you curious about? What are you interested in that you want to get into, right? The next thing is, if you can connect it to a purpose, that makes it even stronger, right? Know why you are doing the thing that you want to do. So you have a dream to be director of finance. Why? Why do you want to be director of finance? Like, is it fulfilling? Is it could make you more money? You got to have good reasons behind it. And I'm sure many of you have had goals, things you wanted to do in the past, and you can remember a difference between a time that you had a strong why behind something versus the time that you just set a goal because your friend set a goal and you're like, yeah, maybe I'll do that too, right? And the easy example is like when you say, yeah, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to go to the gym, 4 days a week. But if you don't have a real reason behind it, it's very easy to get lazy and be like, yeah, I'm not going to the gym today. Versus you're like, yeah, I got a wedding coming up or a beach vacation, or I just want to have more energy to play with my kids. Like, okay, I've got a good reason for this, and I'm going to make sure that I go because I need to do it, right? You've got that why behind it. Number 3 here is you want to make a plan, right? We talked about that earlier, that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So you've actually got to start planning it out. Like, how are you going to accomplish this vision? Can you break it down into milestones? Are there things that you can do to ensure more of the success? Number 4, ask for help. I hope most of you are pretty good in this category. You are here, right? Which means that I'm willing to go out of my way to go find a group or a coach or someone who can help me, and even be willing to pay for that. Maybe, if you find a coach or a mentor, or earlier we were talking about hiring a resume writer, like ask somebody for help with your goal. Or if you're trying to get in shape, hiring a personal trainer or finding an accountability partner who will go to the gym with you. And then number 5 is take responsibility, because this whole idea, this whole thing, my book, this presentation is all based on the premise that you own your career. Nobody else owns it, right? It doesn't belong to anybody else. It belongs to you. You are the owner of your career. You get to decide what you do and where you want to go and where you work. As long as you live in, the Western world, 95% of civilization, you have freedom of choice to work and do what you want within reason, right? So you've got to own it. You've got to take responsibility. Don't wait for permission from somebody else, right? But like, I want to do X. I want to be a researcher, a scientist, a financial analyst. Like, go find out what you need to do to achieve that, and then start taking action towards it. The second thing, and this relates to once you set that vision and you have that idea of where you want to go, is you want to set really clear, specific goals that break down the things that are going to help you get there. I'm a big fan of setting SMART goals. I'm sure many of you have heard of SMART goals in the past, right? I see thumbs up from some of the groups: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely or time-bound. I think the S and the T are possibly the most important here, and that's what really separates bad goals. Like, when you set that goal, is it specific, right? And the classic example is like, I want to get in shape. Well, what the heck does that mean, right? What does it mean to get in shape? How are you going to measure that? How are you going to know when you achieve that goal? How are you going to know if you're on track or you're off track, right? I want to get a job. Like, okay, well, I guess you could measure that if you're fully employed or not, but you could get more specific, right? I want a job as a director with a company with at least 5,000 people, doing X, Y, Z, right? So get very specific in what you want to achieve and set a timeline so that you can measure your progress towards that goal, right? If you're trying to lose 35 pounds in 7 weeks, then you're going to want to lose 5 pounds a week. What are you going to do to get there, right? And you make sure you get that plan, right? I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week. I'm going to eat healthy 6 days a week, or, whatever it may be. It's always easy to give the kind of the fitness, the health example. But obviously these translate into the professional realm as well. So you want to get as specific as possible. I really like having a journal to write these things down. I always have a journal where I write all my goals down, and I track progress daily on those. So I kind of know where I am, and am I ahead? Am I behind? Do I need more help? That sort of thing. Okay. The next section is about taking control of your future. And the middle section of my book, the first section is about owning your career. The middle section is about preparing for the future, whether it's preparing for the future of work, future job changes, career changes, because the working world is changing all the time. I'm sure many of you have been impacted by the changes that have been going on, right? I see heads nodding. We couldn't anticipate how jobs were going to change 20 years ago. You think about the jobs that exist today, many of them didn't exist 10, 20 years ago. The idea of a social media manager 10, 20 years ago, first of all, 20 years ago, you wouldn't even know what the heck that is. 10 years ago, you might've been like, I've heard of social media. Why would a company need a social media manager? Now every company has a social media manager, right? That's a very serious profession that you could go into and move up, and it could be like a whole big career, right? That didn't exist. So jobs today didn't exist 10, 20 years ago. And that also means jobs today are probably going to go away and new jobs are going to pop up, right? And the interesting thing is that the rate of change today is faster than it has ever been in the past. And yet it is slower than it will ever be in the future. That means things are speeding up, right? They're getting faster. So we need to be prepared for the future. We can't just sit around. 2020 it kicked my ass. I don't know, it kicked everybody's butt, right? We know things can show up that we just didn't anticipate. So 3 big things you can do to help yourself prepare for the future. Number 1 is invest in continuous learning, right? The old days of, I'm going to get a college degree, and I'm going to work in this field for the next 30 years and I'm going to be all set. Those are gone, right? We all know that. Nobody believes that anymore, that all I need is this degree, right? You know, you need more. You got to invest in continuous learning. So what does that mean? If you work in a company, then hopefully you've got company resources available, you know, like LinkedIn Learning and things like that. But you can go out of your way to take online courses, join a group like this, right? Listen to podcasts, read books, listen to audiobooks. You can go to conferences, join virtual summits. You could go back to school and get a formal degree. So when I was in my 20s and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I went back to school and I got an MBA. By the way, shout out to Eden Tsai, who is on here. I saw her earlier. Eden and I met in business. She's on. All right. Eden and I met in business school, I don't know, 12 years ago, something like that. So it was cool to see Eden on here. There's all kinds of stuff on YouTube, right? Tons of learning. And then LinkedIn is my favorite. I go on LinkedIn every single day. I share content on LinkedIn every day. And I follow a lot of content creators and I learn from them and like what they're doing, what they're talking about. And it's free, right? There's so much knowledge on there where people are sharing on a regular basis, but you want to be willing to invest in yourself and in your education, in your learning as well, right? So taking courses, spending a few $100s a month or whatever it may be on courses, buying books, going to conferences. I do all that stuff. And I find that it just continues to pay off for me and it helps you prepare for the future, right? Because like I said, jobs are changing, industry changing. We know that. Now it's easy to say, yeah, I'm big on learning. I love learning. I'm going to keep investing in my learning. Like, I don't think if I asked you all, like, who's interested in learning? Like, I don't think anybody would be like, I don't like learning, right? Everybody does, but how many people actually do it on a regular basis? And the answer is not many, because we're always bombarded with life, right? Emails, text messages, social media. So the question is, when are you going to actually make time? Now, I use this metaphor, sharpen your saw. This goes back to Abraham Lincoln talked about this. And then Stephen Covey made it famous in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which a lot of people have read. And I talked about it in my book as well. There's this famous kind of classic story fable of 2 lumberjacks who are going to have a competition to see who can cut down more trees. And lumberjack number 1, they've got like 6 hours. And lumberjack number 1 is just cutting all day long. He never stops. But he hears his competitor, lumberjack number 2, every hour or so he hears him stop. And he thinks, oh, he's resting. I'm going to get ahead, right? I'm definitely going to win this. And at the end of the day, lumberjack number 2 has more trees cut down. By the way, I'm total environmentalist tree hugger, so I don't really like these guys cutting down trees, but this is the metaphor, right? So lumberjack number 2 has more trees cut down, and lumberjack number 1 goes, how in the world did you cut down more trees? I heard you stop several times and I just kept on going. And lumberjack number 2 said, well, every time I stopped, I was sharpening my saw. And then I was able to cut down more trees as a result, right? So you get the metaphor there, right? It's about sharpening your mind, doing training, investing in your learning, and that if you actually take breaks from the daily grind of work, whatever it may be, to go invest in your learning, it's actually going to make you more productive and more effective in the future. And therefore, you're going to win the competition, right? Whatever it is, like you're going to be better. And this is the story I tell with, talent development professionals too, who are trying to get their companies to invest in their people's learning, right? That there are benefits to investing in yourself, investing in others. By the way, if you work for a company, hopefully they do give you learning opportunities, but don't wait, right? If they don't wait for them or go, oh, it's too bad my company doesn't pay for my learning, so I'm not going to do any. Like, no, you got to take it upon yourself, right? And go out and do learning. I've done tons of that. I pay for tons of this stuff, and it continues to pay off for me. The second big thing to prepare for the future is build your network. There is nothing that has been more important for me in my success in my career than having a network. When I think back across my career, and I've had many jobs, and now I run my own business, almost every job and business opportunity that I've had in my career has come to me from a relationship or someone in my network. Going all the way back to my very first job when I was 15 years old, which my mom got for me through a connection that she had working for the county. And then the next one I got working for a pharmacy because a friend of mine in high school worked there and he got me the job. And on and on and on. It just kept going like that. And I leaned into that more and more and more. And I got really big on networking in 2005 when I read a book called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And I read that just as I was entering business school, where I met Eden, I mentioned earlier. And I went on such a mission to build a network that I tried to talk to everybody possible. I ended up being elected president of the business MBA program, 700 people, because I knew more people than anybody else. That was like the only thing. I don't think there was any like, oh yeah, he's a great leader. It was just like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I'll vote for him, right? And oftentimes that's how it goes. So, but later on, like I got into consulting after business school because a friend of mine made an introduction and got me the job. Then I joined a business because a friend of mine invited me to come join his business. And then I'm doing what I'm doing now because so many people got me into the thing that I'm doing. And I'm sure many people here would love for you to think back across the jobs that you've gotten in your career. How many came from an introduction from a network? And how many came from just like applying online and submitting a resume? And if you've had both, which was easier, right? Submitting 500 resumes online, or one friend, Christy, calling you up and going, hey, I heard about this job. I think it would be a great fit for you. I already told them about you and they're eager to meet you. And you go in for the interview and it's just like a hello, when do you want to start? Right? It's not always that easy, but it has been for me in the past because of those warm introductions, right? So the network makes a huge, huge difference. I put in this to tell my networking story. I already told you about college and business school. I've continued to go out of my way to go out and build my network. Before COVID, I would go to a lot of conferences. These two pictures are from a conference in London that I used to attend on building a personal brand. And then when COVID hit, obviously couldn't go to conferences anymore. So I joined membership communities. I started the membership community. I joined things like what you're in now and just was on Zoom all the time, networking with people on Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, and just made a lot of friends by doing that, as I'm sure many of you as well. So to lean into that, don't use COVID as an excuse. You know, I can't go to networking events anymore, or I can't go to conferences anymore. Like everybody's around, they're just online, right? They're not in person. And some of it's coming back and some of it's going away. Like who knows what the future holds, right? But we just got to take the initiative. So I put in this like quick steps on how to build your network. Feel free to take a picture or take notes, and then I have some bonus resources as well. But number one, be proactive. Like you've got to take the initiative and go out and meet people like you're doing now. Number two, lead with curiosity. I'm always trying to be as curious as possible and ask people questions. And then number three, seek to add value, look to add value and help them, right? So there's a very, very famous classic book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was written in the 1930s. It just as true today as it is, as it was then. And one of the things that Mr. Carnegie said in that book was that everybody's favorite word is their name, and everybody's favorite subject is themselves. And it's true, right? No matter who you are, whether you think you're an introvert, extrovert, you think you care about other people or not, like your favorite, you still love talking about yourself, right? I'm talking to you about me right now. And so when you get in a conversation with people and you're willing to ask them questions, like people like that, they appreciate that, right? And there's nothing more annoying than when you get into a conversation with somebody at a networking event and they just spend the whole time talking about themselves. They never ask you anything. You walk away, you're like, I don't want to talk to that person anymore, right? But when they ask you a lot of questions, you know, I go to these things and I just ask people questions. And then people are like, I really like that guy. Like, I didn't do anything. I just asked you questions, right? So it's not manipulative, right? It's just a great way to approach. And you got to do some talking too, right? So like, I always think about it like 70-30, like you want to be talking 30% of the time. I'm talking like 95% of the time today, which feels awkward, but you know, you want to be curious and then give before taking. So like, if you're looking for a job, find ways to give value to other people if you can, before you start asking for stuff, right? Or ask for easy things like another introduction, but not necessarily a job. You've got to follow up, right? I think patience and persistence, those who follow up are the people who win. The fortune is in the follow-up, as they say. Can't tell you how many times I've met people through networking and there was a business opportunity and I sent them an email and nothing happened. And then I followed up 3 times. And then finally they're like, oh, so sorry, I've been busy. Like, yeah, let's talk, right? So people get busy. So follow up, keep in touch. Like you've got to be the one to take the initiative. Where to network? I think these are kind of obvious, but like if you work in a company, do it internally. Like go meet people inside your company, across departments, not just in your internal group. Go to networking mixers, both in person, online, conferences, summits, online groups. Groups like this are great. LinkedIn, of course, I love. I've made a lot of great friends on LinkedIn, people that I've met in person first met on LinkedIn and then met in person, and like we still talk on a regular basis. So don't think of it as like, oh, LinkedIn is just for me to go get a job. Like you can meet so many great people on there. At least I have. Okay. I know I'm talking fast, trying to get through a lot of stuff and also make sure that we have time for you to ask questions, which, by the way, feel free to put questions, comments in the chat. I'm happy to address those as well. But we're still talking about preparing for the future. We talked about investing in continuous learning. We talked about building your network. The other piece is building your personal brand. And Christy, do you guys talk about building your brand, building your reputation? I thought so, right? When you're going to build this group. There's this idea that's been around for a little while about building your personal brand. It's been mostly geared towards entrepreneurs. Like, oh, if you're trying to build a business, you need a brand like other businesses. But I think this is important for everybody, right? Whether you're running a business or you're in the corporate world, and your personal brand is nothing more than your reputation, right? It's what people think about you. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. And when you really think about it, like whether you're going out for a new job or you're going for a promotion at a job, or you're trying to move up or get some kind of cool special project in a company, like you're not going to be in the room when they're having that conversation, right? You might submit your application, resume, have some conversations, but you're not going to be in the room when they're having the conversation, right? So then it's going to come down to your reputation. And when it comes to promotions and getting projects and things, and maybe in a perfect world, it would be solely depend on your experience and your skills. Like, let's be honest, right? Your brand, your reputation is a big factor. What do people think about you? And the example I give in my book that I love giving is like two people are going up for a job, right? There's Matt and Susie, and Matt is really experienced, definitely has all the skills. Like, he's really qualified, but he's kind of grumpy. He's kind of hard to work with. He's standoffish. He doesn't collaborate very well. Like, you don't really like working with him much. And then there's Susie, who's like less experienced, doesn't quite have all the skills, but she's eager, she's collaborative, she's fun to work with. Like, she wants to help you. She's not selfish. Like, who are you going to pick for the job, right? I mean, it depends on the situation, but I'm hiring Susie every time, right? I want that eager, kind, collaborative person versus the like, yeah, I know he can get the job done, but I'm not going to enjoy working with him. It's just that's where the brand and the reputation comes in. So when it comes to building your brand, we won't go deep into this, but it's really about how do you show up in the world? How do you show up with other people? I mean, how do you show up in this group and talk to other people, right? Are you kind and asking other people questions? Or are you just here to get what you want and leave, right? That affects your brand. How do you show up at work? Do you take on extra projects? Do you help other people when they need it? And then in the kind of the social media world, are you sharing, thought leadership and content on LinkedIn or Twitter? Are you commenting on other people's posts and adding value? And I know it's not for everybody to be, putting posts up all the time like I do, but there's an opportunity to kind of share some of the things you're doing, what you're learning, and what you're into. And that can all go into building your brand. So think about that and like how you're showing up in the world on a regular basis, and it can impact, your future abilities to maybe get a job. So number 4, and Christy mentioned this idea of mindset earlier. I think mindset is so important. Your mindset and perspective affect the way you see the world and approach every goal and challenge you have. When you believe things happen for you and that you can turn challenges into opportunities, you can pivot and handle anything. Okay, so there's a couple things in here. First of all, when I talk about mindset, or when I think about mindset, I think about it simply as like your perspective, your outlook on life, like how do you see the world? And the shift that I posted about on LinkedIn and had sent to my email list, and I think I put that link in the chat earlier, was this shift from this belief that everything in life happens to you to everything in life happens for you. And it sounds simple, but it's a big shift, right? Everything in life happens to you is I'm a victim of circumstance. I'm just waiting for things in life to happen. I have no control. Versus everything in life happens for me means that everything that comes my way is essentially a blessing. Everything, gives me an opportunity. Even the challenges, right? Even some of the hardest stuff, right, is happening for me. I don't always know why, right? And I've gone through plenty of challenges, right? COVID shut down my business last year. Earlier this year, as Christine and some of the moderators know, I went through cancer. I had testicular cancer, and I was doing chemotherapy in the early part of this year, January, February, March. some of the hardest time in my life. And I truly believe, I lost all my hair. Hair's back, by the way. I truly believe that everything in life happens for me. And that created an opportunity for me to then speak about that. And I shared a lot of it on social media, what I was going through and what my mindset was throughout that entire time, that we can get through anything. And it also allows us to turn challenges into opportunities. So if you've lost a job, right, and that happens to a lot of people, it can be devastating, right? And it's not a situation that we would choose, but it could always lead to other things. It can create new opportunities, right? Maybe the next job you get is the dream job and you never would have gotten it if you hadn't lost that first job, right? Maybe, Christy, someone somehow knocks you off your perch and you have to stop doing this. You can finally become a CPA. So Julie asked, Andy, I'm sure that point of view helped you on your recovery. I truly believe that. Yeah, it really, really did, right? This belief that this happens for me, this is an opportunity. I'm really big on gratitude. So building a resilient mindset. So how do you get to a point where almost cancer rolls off your back? It wasn't that simple, right? But that you handle these things with ease. First of all, you got to start small, right? So the example I give on starting small is you drop a dish or you spill a drink at home. Like how many people have done that recently? Like I do it all the time, right? It's so easy to get angry at yourself in that moment, or your kids. Oh, when your kids drop that dish at home and you're like, oh, be more careful, right? But when you can start to laugh that stuff off and be like, it happens, like not a big deal, right? And I'm still a work in progress with that too. It becomes easier to handle other things. Number two, focus on what's in your control. There are a lot of things in life that are outside of our control, like the global economy, politics, elections, the global pandemic, your company, your boss, your spouse, your kids. Like you can't control any of them. But what you can control is how you show up in the world, how you interact with other people, how you react to situations when they come up. Those things are all in your control. And when you focus your energy and attention more on the things that are in your control, you become a lot more fulfilled as a result. I find it's a lot more fulfilling. I'm a lot happier because I'm like, oh yeah, these are things I can do something about, versus like, I don't like what's going on with, Congress, but like if I spend all my time agonizing about, like, I can't change that. There's nothing I can do, right? Other than my one vote every couple of years. So focus on what's in your control. Number three, take full responsibility for everything. This is a big one. It's a hard shift, but going from a victim to taking responsibility, even if you're late to a meeting because of traffic, like, I could have left earlier, right? I could have done something about that, right? Instead of just blaming like, these stupid jerks that drove, got in an accident and blocked my way. Like, I could have done something, right? Number four is be curious. Always be asking questions, including questioning yourself. Like, could I have handled that situation better? Could I have done this better? What can I learn from this? Number five, don't resist reality. This is a big one we could go into, but I mean, essentially, like when we're angry, we're upset about things, no matter what it is, that's really us just resisting reality, right? And it's okay. Like we don't have to be satisfied with everything that happens in life. Like you lose a loved one, you're not going to be happy about that. But the longer you're upset, you are resisting reality. And I'm not saying that's bad to do. It's just kind of a realization that I had. Number six, turning challenges into opportunities, which is really awesome. Number seven, growth mindset. Has anybody read the book Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck? Mindset, the Psychology of Success. Okay, I see a couple heads nodding. That book changed my life. Absolutely fantastic. I wrote a whole chapter about it in my book. This idea of having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And with a growth mindset, we believe that we can get better at anything. And therefore, everything is a learning opportunity. And therefore, there really is no failure, right? There's only learning and growth. So I'm going to go for this job. I'm going to try out doing this thing. I'm going to try this project. I'm going to launch this thing, whatever it is. And if it doesn't work out, then at least I'll learn from the experience. Versus like most people don't even try the big things because they're so terrified. Well, what if I fail? Then what will everybody think, right? And then we don't get anywhere, right? But if you want to follow big dreams, you've got to take chances, right? You got to take risks. And then number 8 on here is remember that life is a journey, right? So it's not about that goal. It's not about that one job that you get. Like we're all on a journey. We're all in our own journeys. So we might as well enjoy the journey while we're on it, try to, look around every now and then, take some pictures, and remember that like there's other things to come. Most things that we're doing are not permanent. Okay. Last thing is be willing to pivot. So we talked about setting a vision, setting goals, making a plan. But we know that every good plan often gets challenged. There's a famous quote from the what's the word I want to use? Controversial, famous boxer, Mike Tyson, who said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? So we can make a plan, but things are going to come up. So we've got to be flexible, be willing, like, okay, I'm willing to pivot on this because, things can change, right? So just remember with everything we talked about, that it's important to be willing to pivot. Like you think you want to do one thing, job opportunity comes up for something else, like maybe it's worth considering that, or, something happens. Sure, plenty of you can think of examples. Okay, quick example, how I wrote my book, because this kind of ties things together, is that I didn't just like write a book and like put it out there and see what happens. I knew I had a lot to learn. So I first of all, I set a vision for what I wanted to create, a timeline for when I wanted to create it. I set goals for how I was going to do it. I invested several $1,000s in a course run by a woman named Honoré Corder on how to self-publish a book. I learned everything I could from her. I took the course multiple times. I went through it. I set a timeline that I was going to write my book in about 100 days with milestones. So I'm big on habits. So I established the habit that I would write 500 words a day for 100 days to get to 50,000 words, which is the average length of a business book. And that's exactly what I did. Without that, then I don't think I ever would have gotten there. So I had a plan. I invested in my learning. I built a network. I talked to so many other authors. I started talking to influencers in my space and supporting other people, giving first. So I was always giving, helping other people in my space. And then people came out to help me when I launched my book because I had been helping them for so long. And I'd also been building a brand, putting content on LinkedIn, hosting podcasts, et cetera, that helped me with the book launch as well. Now, it's not like some crazy bestseller or anything like that, but it's done fairly well because I did all of those things, because I followed this process, if you will. I didn't just kind of like hope to get lucky. You know what I mean? Okay, so kind of bringing things together, owning your life, some summaries, key points. I've got a lot of stuff here. And this kind of goes against my classical training and like giving presentations, but my hope is that like you'll walk away with this, just like one or two things. You're like, yes, I needed that. And I'm going to take this thing with me. So you don't have to take it all, but remember that you own your life. You get to decide your happiness or fulfillment. Like, don't wait for other people to decide that for you. Like, you get to decide that today. It's up to you. You've got to prioritize your actions to achieve your goals, right? So if you're trying to get a new job in X, Y, I'm sure Christy talks about this all the time. Like, if you want to go get that job, you've got to put in the work. You've got to like prioritize your actions. Say, okay, today I'm going to spend an hour on LinkedIn on networking, or I'm going to work on X. I'm not just going to sit around, right? Set goals in every area of your life. I'm big on that. Have a bias for action. I think the most successful people that you see have a bias for action. They set a goal and then they go take some action. They go do something instead of procrastinating and sitting on it. We didn't talk about this at all, but take care of your health. So important throughout all of this. Like, you're nothing without your health, right? So take care of your body, take care of your mind. It'll help you be more productive in the end. And consider your future self when you're making decisions. What do you really want to do? If you're thinking about taking a chance, like, what would your future self want you to do? What would they wish that you did? I'm going to skip these takeaways. Thoughts, we already kind of talked about this, but a goal without a plan is just a wish. You own your career. You decide which goal to pursue. You get to decide your fulfillment. Bill talked about health, yoga, 435 classes this year so far. Bill, that's awesome. I love yoga. I go to yoga class every week. It is one of my favorite things. 435 classes. That is nuts. That is pretty cool. Okay. Last quote I want to leave you with, and then I want to open it up to questions. And I also want to make a special offer if you want, if I have your permission. So the quote is, remember that nobody cares more about your career than you do. This is really important, right? Because I'm sure you have friends that care about you. If your mom is still around, like, she definitely cares about you, right? For the most part, you might be lucky and have a manager who cares about you, but nobody cares more about your career than you do. Nobody. So you have to be the one to take initiative and take action and like make your goals a reality, right? Just like I needed to do with baseball and engineering, and I didn't do, but I am doing now, and I'm hoping to help other people do the same thing. So thoughts, questions, and then I'll just share some information for those of you that want more.
Andy, go ahead and make your offer. Share with people how they can connect with you and work with you.
Okay, cool. So first of all, connecting with me, like find me on social media. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. This is like, people say special offer and you're like, well, that's not really special. You probably offer that to everybody. Like, this is seriously a very special offer. I have been working for the last 3 months on building an online course from my book. And I'm running one pilot program now for a company. And I'm looking for more people to jump into this course. I've put so much effort and I've hired people to create this. It is really phenomenal. And I want to make a special offer to you. This is the first time I've done this to any group, to join this pilot of the Own Your Career course for a special discounted price. Now, if you decide not to do this, I've still got some free resources for you, but it is an opportunity to join. It's a 6-module course. I'm going to give you 30% off of the price that's probably going to go up again in the future. But let me tell you what you get if you decide to join this course. And I talked about the importance of investing in yourself. I do this all the time. And I really think it's important, whether you do this or do something else, that you are regularly investing in yourself. James had a great presentation. Thank you, James. So what you get is a 6-module course. We recommend you do over 6 weeks, but you can do it self-paced, kind of at your own pace. But generally it's set up to be done 6 modules over 6 weeks. It's not overwhelming. It's just the information you need to go deeper on the stuff we talked about today. There's more advice on how to own your career. There's videos for each of the module. There's written content for each of the module. There are exercises you can do. So it caters to like whatever your learning style is. Some people love watching videos. Some people are like, I don't have time for videos. I just want to read this. But the key thing is that you get the workbook, which is like an 80-page workbook, and you do all the exercises. It's going to help you really think through where you want to go, how you're building your network, your brand, all that stuff to really be more successful in your career. There's a bunch of bonus resources in there, including a 1-hour video training I did on how to crush it with LinkedIn. It's everything that I know and have learned to help me be successful on LinkedIn. That's included in there. It's something I make available to my private community that pays like a monthly fee. That is available in there as well. So you get access to that. I mean, that's worth a few $100 on its own to help you be more successful with LinkedIn, building your network, creating content, that sort of thing. And the course is normally $600. It's starting at $600. Again, if it's really popular, we may end up increasing that. But I'm offering you a 30% discount if you sign up today or by Monday. So off the regular price, it would be $420 for you. You get the 6 modules, the bonus resources. And I didn't even put it on the slide, but I'm actually going to throw in, if we get, say at least 5 people or 10 people from this group that sign up, I'm going to throw in another live Zoom call to do Q&A. So you can go through it and then you can come back and ask as many questions as you want, and also provide feedback and things on the course as well. So if you want to do it, let me put the link in the chat when you want to do it. Let's see, where's the chat? Okay.
And we'll send this out with a recording this afternoon so that people have this code, and we'll tell them that they have to do it by Monday.
Okay, yeah, so do it by Monday. I think Monday at midnight, this will expire, and it really will. Like, this is not one of those like, oh, I say it expires, and like, it really will. So the link is kind of long. I put it in the chat, and right, you can put that in there later too. I appreciate that, Christy. Make sure if you sign up, use the discount code Bootcamp Coffee. That will give you 30% off, unless you just really want to give me $600 instead of $420. Like, use the discount code. That will give you the 30% off, but you've got to do it by Monday. And then after that, I think it'll still be available, but only at the $600 price. That discount code will expire. So,
okay, so we have time for one question. Who has a question?
Sorry, I didn't leave more time for questions. Who's got a question about the course or about anything we talked about today?
Anything.
Andy, I got a question.
Yeah.
So your networking tip, one of your networking tips is to lead with curiosity. I'm always wondering, what are some good icebreaker questions that really get conversations started and that you end up having a really fun conversation?
Oh, Eden, thank you so much for that question. That is a good one. And by the way, let me just change the slide one more time. So for those of you that are maybe not necessarily signing up, if you want to get some free resources, you can go to that top link there. I don't have it linked in here, but I can get it to you. And then my email and all the social and stuff in there. So good icebreaker questions. I love to ask people, about the work that they're doing, because people love to talk about that. So some easy questions, besides just like, what do you do and where do you work and what's your commute like, that I really like are like, what do you love about what you do? What do you not like about what you do? What was it like when you started? If you really want to like kind of get deeper, like, what's your dream? What do you, or what are some of goals that you're trying to accomplish? Because you also want to find out like, what do people care about? What are they trying to do? And maybe there's a way you can help them, right? What's one of the struggles that you have right now? What are the challenges that you've gone through lately? But you could just ask like, what do you do? Why did you get into that, right? And what do you love about it? And what do you not like about it? I find that's usually enough to get a conversation started where you can at least find out more about the thing that they do and like why they did it. And probably nobody ever asked them why. Like, why did you get into that? And maybe it was just an accident, like many of us, right? We got into things accidentally, but it's usually an interesting story about how that worked out.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Any other questions?
Andy, you have done just a great job on this and giving everyone just a ton of information. Really appreciate that. We'd love to have you back. Would you come back?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Yeah. Thank you. By the way, that presentation, I'm giving that to some companies in September. They're paying $5,000 for the same presentation. You got it today for free.
Well,
so.
You have a very interesting approach. You pack in a lot of information, but you're so easy to listen to. You're
well,
super easy to listen to. And how you stay motivated, holy moly, hats off to you. So I love a goal without a plan is just a wish. Yeah. And the other thing is that resilient mindset, and life is a journey. And, we're all on our own journey. And so, we don't have to judge each other.